It really feels like something big is starting to build around this team right now. You can feel the energy changing little by little, especially with the way the front office and coaching staff are finally moving in the same direction. And while the rest of the division is dealing with drama and uncertainty, Chicago looks focused on building something that can actually compete for real this season. There's a lot to talk about, because some recent developments around the NFC North could end up changing everything for the Bears moving forward. Before we jump in, make sure to hit that like button and drop Bear down in the comments if you're riding with this team all season long. Josh Jacobs becoming the center of a major off-field situation is something nobody around the NFC North expected. And now, the entire division is watching closely to see what happens next. According to reports coming out of Wisconsin, the Packers' running back was initially booked on multiple charges connected to an alleged domestic incident, before later being released from custody, while the investigation remains ongoing. The Brown County District Attorney's Office stated that no formal charging decision has been made yet, but they also made it clear the case is still active and under review. The details that surfaced afterward immediately raised attention across the league. Dispatch audio reportedly included neighbors describing yelling, screaming, and objects being thrown inside the residence. Another caller allegedly claimed an assault had taken place, while reports later stated that the man involved had already left the area in a Mercedes G-Wagon before authorities tracked the vehicle using camera systems. Deputies and emergency responders later arrived at the home as the situation continued developing. Right now, the biggest thing is uncertainty. No one officially knows where this situation is heading, and even the authorities are still gathering information before deciding on any possible next steps. That uncertainty alone creates massive questions for Green Bay heading into the season, because Josh Jacobs is not just another player in their offense. He is the engine that makes everything work. When the Packers' offense is rolling, it usually starts with Jacobs controlling the ground game and forcing defenses to respect the run before Jordan Love attacks downfield. And from a Bears perspective, that matters a lot more than fans may realize. Chicago spent this entire offseason trying to close the gap in the division. The organization invested heavily in reshaping the roster, especially on defense, and there is real belief inside Halas Hall that this team can finally compete for the NFC North crown. If Green Bay suddenly loses one of its most important offensive weapons, the balance of power inside the division could shift dramatically. The other part of this story that stands out is how quiet the Packers have reportedly been since the news broke. Media availability became limited, players were not speaking publicly, and Matt LaFleur addressed the situation only briefly. That kind of silence usually tells you organizations are trying to avoid escalating the conversation while waiting for legal clarity. Meanwhile, Jacobs' attorneys reportedly argued that once facts began emerging, authorities decided to release him from custody. But football conversations never stop, especially in Chicago. Bears fans immediately started asking what this could mean for the division race if the situation somehow leads to missed games, league discipline, or worse. Green Bay's running back room behind Jacobs does not exactly inspire confidence. There are already concerns about durability with some of the younger options, and even discussion around whether those players can consistently stay healthy throughout a full season. At the same time all of this was unfolding, the Bears quietly gave fans a huge reason for excitement with another inside look at rookie safety Dylan Thiemann through the newest episode of 1920 Football Drive. And what stood out immediately was how strongly the coaching staff felt about him from the very beginning. Ryan Poles revealed that Dennis Allen did not simply like the player. He told everyone inside the room that he loved the player. That distinction matters because it shows just how aligned the Bears' front office and coaching staff were throughout the draft process. That alignment is something Bears fans have wanted for years. Successful organizations operate with one shared vision: And the footage from inside the draft room showed exactly that. Ben Johnson was reportedly fired up about landing Thiemann, Dennis Allen believed he perfectly fit the defense, and the scouting department clearly viewed him as one of the steals of the first round. The surprising part was that Chicago even had the opportunity to draft him at all. According to the discussion surrounding the draft, many projections had him going much earlier, sometimes even inside the top 15, before he unexpectedly slid to Chicago later in the round. And when Dennis Allen finally spoke directly to Thiemann after the pick, you could feel the emotion in the moment. Allen admitted he did not believe the safety would still be available when Chicago went on the clock, even joking that he was sweating while waiting to see how the board unfolded. That reaction says everything about how badly the Bears wanted him in this defense. So now the Bears enter the season with a completely different feeling around the organization. Green Bay is suddenly dealing with uncertainty surrounding one of its biggest stars, while Chicago is building excitement around a defense loaded with younger, more versatile talent. The question now becomes whether this offseason momentum can finally translate into real wins once the season starts. Bears fans have waited a long time for this team to seriously challenge Green Bay again. And with everything happening right now around the division, do you believe the balance of power is finally starting to shift toward Chicago? What makes this entire situation even more interesting for Bears fans is the timing of it all. Chicago finally looks like a franchise that understands exactly what kind of identity it wants to build, while Green Bay suddenly has questions surrounding one of the players that their offense depends on the most. And when you compare the direction of both rosters right now, you can understand why there is growing confidence inside Chicago that this team is preparing to compete at a completely different level in 2026. The Bears' coaching staff is clearly prioritizing versatility and intelligence on defense, especially in the secondary. That was one of the biggest takeaways from the behind-the-scenes footage involving Dylan Thiemann. Dennis Allen reportedly wants players who can disguise coverages, rotate responsibilities, play downhill in the box, and still handle deep assignments without becoming liabilities. That flexibility is exactly why the Bears became so aggressive about targeting Thiemann in the draft. What is exciting for fans is that Chicago now has safeties capable of doing multiple things at a high level. The discussion from inside the organization centered heavily around how Thiemann and Kobe Bryant can evolve together long-term, because both players offer coverage ability that gives the defense much more freedom schematically. The Bears coaches reportedly want Thiemann playing all over the field already. They want him comfortable in the box. They want him handling deep safety responsibilities, and they want him adapting quickly to multiple roles within the system. That is where Dennis Allen's influence becomes extremely important. His defenses have always relied on disguising intentions before the snap, confusing quarterbacks, and creating hesitation. To do that effectively, you need defensive backs who can move around without exposing weaknesses. According to the discussion around the Bears' defense, Allen loves players capable of mixing responsibilities because it prevents offenses from identifying coverage looks too early. And honestly, this is where the Bears may finally be catching up with modern NFL defenses. The league has changed dramatically over the last several years. Teams attack space faster than ever. Quarterbacks diagnose coverage quicker, and offenses constantly force defenders into impossible matchups. Having one-dimensional defensive backs has become a serious problem in today's NFL, which is exactly why Chicago appears determined to build a secondary filled with interchangeable pieces. The front office also seems convinced that Thiemann's mentality fits perfectly with the culture they are trying to establish. One thing repeatedly emphasized throughout the footage was his football character and how productive he had already been throughout his college career. He proved himself at Purdue before seamlessly transitioning to Oregon and immediately fitting into a championship-level environment. That adaptability matters because The Bears believe they are no longer rebuilding slowly. They believe they are entering a phase where young players must contribute immediately. There is another important layer here that Bears fans should pay attention to. Ryan Poles and the coaching staff did not sound relieved after making the pick. They sounded shocked that the opportunity even existed. Multiple draft projections reportedly had Tiemann coming off the board much earlier, some even inside the top half of the first round. So when he unexpectedly slid to Chicago later in the opening round, the Bears immediately recognized the value sitting in front of them. Those are the kinds of moments that can change franchises if the evaluation proves correct. Every successful NFL team eventually reaches a point where it consistently capitalizes when the draft board unexpectedly falls its way. And internally, the Bears clearly believe that is exactly what happened here. The excitement from Dennis Allen, Ben Johnson, and Ryan Poles did not feel forced. It felt genuine, like they believed Chicago had just landed one of the foundational pieces for the future of the defense. Meanwhile, the contrast with Green Bay becomes impossible to ignore. While Chicago is showcasing unity, excitement, and long-term planning, the Packers are dealing with uncertainty around a player who remains critical to their offense. If Josh Jacobs ultimately avoids serious consequences, Green Bay probably stabilizes quickly and moves forward. But if the situation escalates in any way, the Packers could suddenly find themselves scrambling to replace one of the few proven offensive stars on their roster. That is why this offseason suddenly feels different inside the NFC North. Detroit still carries major expectations, but Chicago no longer feels like a team simply hoping to compete someday. The Bears are building aggressively. They believe their coaching staff finally matches the vision of the front office, and they are assembling a roster designed for modern football. From the way coaches reacted to Tiemann's arrival, you can already sense the confidence growing behind the scenes. Now the pressure shifts to proving it on the field. Bears fans have heard promises before. They have watched off-season hype collapse many times over the years. But this situation feels more calculated than emotional. The Bears are targeting versatility, intelligence, and scheme fit, instead of simply collecting recognizable names. And if players like Dylan Tiemann develop the way this staff believes they can, Chicago may finally have the defensive flexibility necessary to compete deep into the season. This division could look very different by the end of the year, especially if Green Bay's situation continues creating distractions while Chicago's young core keeps developing together. The Bears believe they found a major defensive piece in Dylan Tiemann, and now fans are waiting to see whether this new era can finally deliver consistent winning football against rivals that have dominated the division for years. Subscribe to the channel, leave your thoughts in the comments, smash that like button, and click on the video on your screen right now, because all the latest Chicago Bears news and updates are right here first. Go Bears!